Hey there, and welcome to Family Revenge. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can stay with us for every twist and turn. Let's jump right in. The room was practically dripping in opulence, the kind of fancy where every glass seemed too delicate to touch, and the whole place smelled like money. My family loved it, loved the suits, the silk dresses, the sheer extravagance of it all. It was my dad's retirement party, and I wasn't even sure I belonged here. I stood off to the side, trying to keep myself invisible in my simple black dress. Everyone else was in glittering, designer-stamped outfits that screamed we've made it. Me? I felt like a shadow. My relatives clustered together, laughing in the kind of unity that only a family built on decades of shared business success could muster. They were all involved in the family construction company: my dad, my uncles, aunts, cousins, even my brothers. All of them were a part of it, and then there was me, the techie, the odd one out. Claire, sweetheart, Aunt Marge's voice was syrupy sweet, but there was something cold underneath. Still working on that hobby of yours? I forced a smile, keeping my voice steady. It's not a hobby, Aunt Marge. It's a career. Her lips thinned, a small, knowing smile pulling at the corners of her mouth. Well, I suppose it's cute. A little girl playing with computers. You'll never really be able to keep up with the family, though. You know that, don't you? I couldn't quite suppress the tightening in my chest. Cute. That stung more than I wanted to admit. My dad stepped up to the podium. The chatter faded, and all eyes turned to him. He looked every bit the man who had built this empire, his voice full of pride as he started talking about the company's growth. He praised my brothers, all their hard work, their commitment to the business. Then he mentioned me, and the air in the room shifted. And of course, there's Claire, he said, his tone suddenly flat. She's still dabbling in that tech thing. I suppose that's nice. The room went quiet, and I could feel all their eyes shift to me. My brothers, my cousins, all of them. It was like a weight settled in my stomach, pulling me down. My dad cleared his throat, not even trying to hide the awkwardness. Anyway, let's not focus too much on that. The real legacy is in the family business. The hard work we've put in. My children, my real children, are what make me proud. I blinked hard. He didn't just say that. My stomach twisted, and I could feel my face burning, but I stayed put. The sting of humiliation cut deeper than I expected, but I wasn't about to let it show. Not here. Not in front of everyone. I fought to hold my ground, but I wanted to get out. To leave. The room was thick with expectation as my dad continued, his voice booming through the microphone. He smiled, his words flowing easily now, his chest puffing out with pride. This company, this legacy, has been built on blood, sweat, and hard work, he said. And I couldn't be more proud of my children, all of them. Jason, always pushing boundaries, leading our marketing team. Jake, with his incredible talent in finance, there's no one who can crunch numbers like him. And then there's Sam, taking the business into new territories, expanding our reach like we never thought possible. These are the ones who are going to carry this company forward. He paused, scanning the room like he expected applause, and for a moment, I almost felt like I was invisible. And, of course, Claire, my name barely hung in the air. He shifted on his feet, the smile faltering. Well, Claire's been doing her own thing, hasn't she? Still working on her tech stuff. He chuckled, but there was no warmth in it. It's a nice little hobby for her, I suppose. A tight knot formed in my stomach. I looked around the room, and every pair of eyes was on me, some confused, others barely concealed judgment. I could feel my cheeks flush, the weight of their expectations pressing down on me like 100-pound rock. Dad's tone shifted again, a subtle jab disguised as concern. I mean, we're proud of Claire, of course, for, well, finding her own way. But let's be honest, she'll never measure up to the success we've built here. Not with that hobby. I was no longer sure if I could breathe. The air was thick, suffocating. I didn't know how to process it. My brothers, my cousins, all of them were soaking it in, nodding as if this was the gospel truth. They didn't even need to say anything. I could hear their thoughts clearly enough. She's not one of us. She's not built for this. She's weak. She'll never be enough. I swallowed, the sharp taste of bile rising in my throat. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. I forced myself to keep my gaze fixed on him, my hands trembling slightly at my sides, and yet I didn't let myself flinch. He continued, oblivious to the fact that I was practically breaking in front of him. And at the end of the day, it's about the family business. That's where the true value lies. It's about building something that lasts. The sting was unbearable now. My father wasn't even pretending to care about the work I'd done. He didn't see what I had accomplished. All the late nights, the meetings, the endless hours spent trying to prove myself. To him, it was just a distraction, an afterthought. And so, as I retire, I leave this company in the hands of my sons, Jason, Jake, Sam. They'll carry the torch, just like we always planned. I felt my stomach twist tighter. He didn't just leave me out. He actively chose to dismiss me. His voice dropped, and the last words fell out like a stone. And Claire, he gave a small, dismissive shake of his head. She's the family's biggest disappointment. The room went silent. I couldn't look at anyone. The blood drained from my face as the weight of his words hit me with full force. The world around me blurred, but I couldn't escape it. Not now. Not here. I could feel everyone's eyes on me now, every head turned in my direction, and I wanted to shrink, to disappear into the floor, to crawl out of the room, but my body was frozen, my feet glued to the spot. And just like that, the last shred of my dignity seemed to evaporate. I tried to swallow past the lump in my throat. Biggest disappointment. That's what I'd become in my father's eyes. That's all I was. No one said a word, but the weight of it pressed in harder than anything I had ever felt before. I stood there, a lump in my throat, heart pounding in my chest, and just let the silence stretch on. I wanted to disappear. I stood there, my hands gripping the edge of my chair, barely able to hold myself up. The room felt like it was closing in on me, the air thick with a stifling silence that I couldn't escape. Biggest disappointment. That's what I was now. My father had made sure of it. I was trying to focus, to breathe, but then something shifted. A woman entered the room. She was tall, confident, sharp in her tailored suit, and she moved with purpose. Her gaze scanned the crowd, and when her eyes landed on the podium, she walked straight to it. "Good evening, everyone," she said, her voice commanding attention without effort. "I'm Olivia Bennett, a journalist with Business Insider. I'm here today to speak with Claire." My head jerked up at the sound of my name. Olivia didn't wait for any applause or reaction. She picked up the microphone with ease. "I'm here to interview Claire for a feature about her company, Box Tech. It's been named one of the most innovative new startups in the tech world." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Box Tech. I had no idea how she even knew about me, let alone that she was going to announce it here, like some kind of dramatic revelation. My mind scrambled to catch up, but I couldn't help the chill running down my spine. My father's face was unreadable. For a moment, he was frozen, processing what he'd just heard. His mouth opened, then closed. His eyebrows furrowed, confusion flickering across his features. I'm sorry," he stammered, fumbling with the microphone. "Box Tech? That's the company she, works for, right?" Olivia smiled coolly, the kind of smile that someone who had no patience for nonsense gives when you're not quite following along. Not quite. Vox Tech is her company. Claire built it from the ground up. It's valued at $2.5 billion. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest. Billion. I wasn't sure how to process it. The numbers felt abstract, unreal. But I could see the room's reaction, the confused glances, the stiffening of shoulders. My family wasn't expecting any of this. She continued, unaffected by the sudden shift in the atmosphere. Vox Tech is doing groundbreaking work in artificial intelligence, developing solutions for industries like healthcare, transportation, and even military defense. They've recently secured a major contract with a global leader in autonomous vehicles. And they're also working with top-tier companies like Amazon and Tesla to create the next generation of smart tech. I could hear a pin drop. All of them, the people who'd spent the night praising the family business, were now staring at me like I was a ghost. A fucking ghost who had somehow managed to pull off the impossible. My dad opened his mouth again, but no words came out. His face was pale, his expression stunned. Olivia wasn't done. In fact, Voxtech recently completed a deal with the Department of Defense for cutting-edge AI technology used in military drones. The contract is worth hundreds of millions, and it's positioned Voxtech at the forefront of a new wave of defense tech. My father's eyes widened. Military drones, he repeated, his voice rising in pitch, almost incredulous. What are you talking about? Olivia nodded, the corner of her mouth quirking up as though she were speaking to a child who still didn't get it. Yes, drones, autonomous vehicles, advanced medical research. Voxtech is driving innovation across several industries. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, a bitter sort of satisfaction swirling inside me. My father's face had drained of all color, his brows knitting tighter with every word Olivia spoke. The room was still. My family wasn't sure how to react. Some looked impressed, others downright shocked, but no one, least of all my father, seemed to know how to handle this new reality. Olivia turned toward me, her tone shifting from journalist to something closer to admiration. Claire, how does it feel to know that you've built one of the most important companies in the world from nothing? How did you manage to turn an idea into something so influential, especially when so many people doubted you? My stomach tightened. There was no turning back now. I wasn't sure whether to feel proud or ashamed. Proud of what I'd built, or ashamed that I had to stand here and watch my father process this realization in front of everyone. But I kept my voice steady, looking at my family as I answered. It wasn't easy. It took years of long nights, countless failures, and a lot of people telling me it was a waste of time. But I'm here now, and Voxtech is going to keep changing the world. I could see the disbelief on my father's face. He still couldn't wrap his mind around it. He was processing, yes, but he wasn't sure how to pivot. How to fix the mess he'd just made. As the tension hung in the air, Olivia smiled, taking a step back. There's a lot more to come for Voxtech. This is just the beginning. She looked at me, then back at my father. And Claire? She's only getting started. Olivia didn't let the silence hang for long. She was smooth, like she knew how to work a room, how to push the right buttons. There's also the matter of Voxtech's partnership with several global corporations, she continued, unfazed by the stunned expressions all around her. From healthcare to defense, Voxtech is making waves. Recently, you secured a $500 million defense contract. My father's face turned an even deeper shade of pale. His eyes darted around the room, looking for some kind of escape. Defense, he asked, his voice shaky as if he couldn't quite comprehend the words. What defense contract? Olivia nodded, completely calm. Yes, Voxtech's technology plays a pivotal role in military drones, autonomous vehicles, and medical research. Drones, specifically, for surveillance and strategic operations. The word defense hung in the air like a heavy weight, and I saw my father's entire body stiffen. My mother, who had been half paying attention all night, suddenly snapped out of her trance and turned toward us. Military? Her voice was flat, but there was a flicker of something underneath it, curiosity, maybe even concern. I glanced at my father, still frozen, his mouth hanging open. This wasn't supposed to be happening. I wasn't sure if I had it in me to answer them, but I did anyway. I straightened my back and spoke, my tone steady despite the chaos of my thoughts. It's not just about drones. Voxtech's technology is being used in autonomous vehicles, AI systems that can predict traffic patterns, and even in medical devices designed to improve patient care. My team and I are working with experts to develop new treatments for diseases, like cancer, using AI to predict outcomes. I saw the looks flicker across their faces. My mother's was unreadable, but my father's was pure confusion. He stared at me, as if he had never seen me before, and I knew he didn't understand. You're telling me, he asked, his voice a little higher, that you're working with military contractors? Drones? Is that where this, he motioned vaguely at Olivia, at me, at everything, is all headed? I didn't flinch. I was done trying to explain myself to him. This isn't some side project, Dad, I said, my voice cutting through the air. This is real work. Work that has a bigger impact than anything this company has ever touched. The world is changing. Whether you like it or not, technology is the future. I felt the tension building, thick and suffocating, but I couldn't stop myself. I've spent years building Vox Tech from the ground up, facing rejection from people I trusted, including you. Every step of the way, people said I was wasting my time. That tech wasn't real work. But look at where we are now. The words had come out harsher than I intended, but the room didn't seem to mind. Olivia glanced at me, impressed by my bluntness, but she didn't interrupt. I turned back to my family, but I kept my focus on my father. I'm not just some girl with an idea anymore. Vox Tech is valued at $2.5 billion, and we're about to launch an IPO. We're on the verge of changing industries across the board: healthcare, transportation, military, all of it. A murmur passed through the room, the words IPO, $2.5 billion, floating through the air like confetti. For a second, I saw a flicker of recognition in my father's eyes, as though he was finally processing the enormity of it all. But then his face hardened, and I knew he was looking for some way to dismiss it. He didn't want to see me as anything more than his failure. I know it's a lot to take in, I continued, the anger I'd been holding back now bubbling over, but it's the truth. I've worked for this. I've earned it. And I don't need anyone's approval to keep going. I could feel the weight of the room on me. Some of them were uncomfortable, others were intrigued, and a few were outright hostile. But I stood there, letting the words settle, letting them stew in the silence. And then my mother, who had always been distant, always a shadow in the background, finally spoke. I didn't know it was like this, she said quietly, almost to herself. Then, louder, she asked, and you're really doing this on your own? I wanted to snap something back, tell her she should have paid attention sooner, but instead, I just nodded. Yes, I've been doing it on my own. And I'll keep doing it. This isn't about proving anything to anyone anymore. It's about what Vox Tech can do for the world. I wasn't asking for validation. I was just stating the facts, plain and simple. The tension in the room wasn't gone, but I could feel a shift. Some of them were realizing I wasn't the person they'd thought I was, the girl who couldn't fit into the family business. Maybe, just maybe, I had built something that mattered. And it was a hell of a lot more than they ever gave me credit for. But I didn't care. Not anymore. The world knew what I was capable of. The rest didn't matter. The room was still buzzing with disbelief, but I wasn't done yet. Olivia was still taking notes, her pen moving swiftly across her notepad, and I could see the shift in the way people were starting to look at me, not as the family failure anymore, but as someone with power, with substance. And I wasn't going to let that slip by. Vox Tech isn't just a company, I continued, my voice steady now, even as I could feel the weight of my father's disappointment in the air. We're expanding rapidly. We've secured a major contract with a pharmaceutical company that's developing breakthrough treatments for cancer. Our AI is being used to analyze millions of data points to predict cancer growth and create personalized treatments. The room grew quieter. You could almost hear the collective gasp as the implications of what I was saying started to sink in. Cancer. Treatments. I could see my family processing it, but their faces didn't show anything close to pride. Most of the work we're doing right now could change the way the world fights diseases like cancer, I added. And we're just getting started. I paused, letting the words sink in before pushing forward. I wasn't going to be subtle anymore. I also own 60% of Vox Tech. So yeah, it's been a hell of a ride. A murmur went through the crowd. Jake, my brother who had been quiet until now, leaned toward his wife and whispered something that I couldn't hear, but I saw his phone in his hand. The screen lit up as he did the math. The corner of his mouth twitched, and I could almost hear him calculating my wealth in real time. $2.5 billion. $1.5 billion. Whatever the number was, it didn't matter. Claire, my dad spoke up, his voice strained, almost faltering. I think we should just save face. I finished for him, my eyes locking with his. It's a little too late for that, don't you think? He hesitated, clearly not expecting that. Well, I didn't mean it like that, he muttered, rubbing his hand through his hair. But it sounded weak, like he was grasping for something to hold on to, and nothing was sticking. The tension in the room thickened as I stood there, taller than I'd ever felt before, free from the weight of his judgment. I didn't have to explain myself anymore. I didn't owe him anything. The damage was done, and I'd made my own way. I wasn't just someone's daughter now, I was Claire, and Vox Tech was mine. Olivia, still standing by the podium, seemed to sense the shift in the atmosphere. She didn't wait for anyone else to speak. She moved forward with another question. You've had quite an impact in the tech industry, Claire, but I understand you're also committed to giving back. Could you tell us about some of the philanthropic efforts Vox Tech is involved in? I could feel everyone's eyes on me again, waiting for me to respond, but this time, I was ready. It was always easier to talk about the work I did when it had real meaning, when it was about more than just numbers or contracts. Well, I began, taking a steadying breath. Vox Tech is committed to bridging the gap in tech. We've started a program to help underprivileged girls get into STEM fields, to help them see that tech is a place for them, too. We're funding scholarships, mentoring, and offering internships at the company. My team and I believe that if we want to see the future of tech change, we need to start with the next generation. I could see a flicker of interest from my mother, the first time she'd shown any emotion at all since I started speaking. But I didn't feel the need to look at her. I had to focus on this moment. On me. The truth is, I continued, I didn't get a lot of support growing up. It wasn't easy, but those experiences shaped my passion for helping others who were told they couldn't make it. If I can help one girl feel the way I feel now, to know that she doesn't have to fit into anyone's mold, then that's what matters. The room was silent again, but it wasn't the kind of silence I was used to. This wasn't about doubt or disappointment. This time, it felt more like respect. Or at least, curiosity. My dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his fingers tapping against the armrest in a nervous rhythm. He still didn't know what to make of any of this. I saw him try to keep his expression neutral, but it wasn't working. He was uncomfortable, and for the first time in years, I didn't care. I had found my footing, standing firm in a way that no one had ever imagined. I wasn't the failure they'd all assumed I would be. I wasn't their afterthought anymore. I was running this show, and the world was watching. And that was all I needed. I was halfway through explaining a new initiative Vox Tech was launching when I felt a shift behind me. My father stood up slowly, like he wasn't sure where he was going or what he was going to say. My gaze slid to him, and I could feel everyone in the room hold their breath, waiting for him to speak. He took a few hesitant steps toward me, then stopped a few feet away. He looked at me for a long, uncomfortable moment, his mouth opening and closing like he couldn't quite get the words out. When he did speak, his voice was quieter than usual, almost tentative. Claire, he began, his eyes avoiding mine for a moment. I owe you an apology for what I said at the speech. It was harsh. It was wrong. I stayed silent, watching him. He was right. It had been harsh, but I couldn't bring myself to feel anything but cold indifference. It wasn't the first time he'd said something like that, always a little underhanded, a little dismissive. He'd always been proud of his sons, always praised them in front of me while I stood there, invisible. His words weren't enough. They felt like they were meant to fix something, but they didn't. Not anymore. It's too late for apologies, Dad, I said, my voice even. You made your feelings clear a long time ago. You didn't believe in me. You still don't. I watched his face tighten, the apology dying on his lips. He wasn't used to hearing me speak like that. He opened his mouth again, but nothing came out. I didn't wait for him to find the right words. You never once tried to understand what I was doing, what I was working toward, I went on. You always had a reason to doubt me, to dismiss me. All these years, you've been so busy with your empire that you never noticed that your daughter was out here, building something real. On my own, with no one's help. The room was still, my words hanging in the air, sharp and biting. My father's shoulders slumped, but I didn't soften. Then I heard my mother's voice, trembling behind me. Claire, honey, I never meant to make you feel this way. I turned to face her. Her eyes were shiny, glistening with tears. She looked fragile, the way I always remembered her when things got tough, small, apologetic, always wanting to fix things in the simplest way possible. Don't, I said, my words biting despite the knot in my chest. I don't need your pity. I never did. Her face crumpled, and I could feel the weight of the years between us, the years of her never really being there. of her supporting my father's every move, but never once stepping in to defend me when I needed it. You don't understand, Claire, she whispered, her voice breaking. We're your family. We love you. We've always wanted what's best for you. I shook my head, feeling the heat rise in my chest. No, you didn't. You wanted me to fit into your mold. You wanted me to do what everyone else was doing, what you were doing, but that was never me. And you never let me be anything but that. Not until now, when I've already built something that matters. She took a step toward me, but I held my ground. Her tears didn't change anything. The damage had been done long ago. My brother Jason, who had been standing off to the side, awkwardly shifted his weight. Claire, his voice was tentative, like he was walking on eggshells. Look, I know I haven't been the most supportive either, but maybe we can talk about this? I mean, you've done amazing things. And we should be proud of you. I met his gaze, and he instantly faltered. He wasn't used to me standing up for myself, to me calling out the family for their indifference. He didn't know how to react to this version of me. Jason, you don't get it, I said. You've always been the golden child, the one who followed Dad's rules, the one who fit in. I was always the one who didn't measure up. But I'm done trying to earn your approval. I don't need it anymore. I let the words settle, watching their faces. The tension in the room was thick, suffocating, but I felt lighter. Like I had just shed a skin that had been clinging to me for years. I've built something that matters, I said, my voice firmer now. I did this on my own terms, and I don't need your validation to know I've succeeded. Not anymore. The room stayed quiet for a moment, as if my words were still hanging in the air. But I wasn't waiting for anything from them anymore. I wasn't looking for an apology or some kind of acceptance. I had my own life now, my own company, and I wasn't bound by their expectations. The only opinion that mattered was mine. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. I barely had a moment to breathe after Jason and the rest of them fell silent. The tension in the room was thick, but then my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at the screen, my CFO's name popped up. Excusing myself from the conversation, I stepped out into the quieter hallway. I could still hear faint murmurs from the family, but I needed this. Needed to hear this next step, this next confirmation. Claire, my CFO's voice was calm, professional. I'm calling to confirm that we've locked in the IPO date. We're going live in 3 weeks. And I've got some more good news. The company is officially valued at $4 billion. I leaned against the wall, the words sinking in, like they were meant for someone else. $4 billion. The weight of it wasn't as heavy as it used to be. I had done the work. I'd earned the right to hear that number. That's great, I said, keeping my tone steady. Let me know if anything changes, and keep me updated as we approach the date. I hung up and took a breath, but just as I did, I saw my father standing at the end of the hallway. He must have overheard the conversation. His eyes locked onto mine, his face pale, a mix of disbelief and what was it? Fear? Jealousy? Whatever it was real. You're telling me Vox Tech is worth $4 billion? His voice was almost a whisper, like he didn't believe it. I didn't flinch. I didn't even need to respond. There was no point in explaining it to him anymore. He knew I was right. The success was undeniable now. I didn't need to fight for his approval or justify myself. I'd been doing that for far too long. Yeah, that's the number, I said, glancing past him toward the door, ready to leave the room and walk away from the family circus. So, what now? My father's gaze softened just a little, like a weight had come crashing down on his chest. He stopped, shaking his head. I never understood what you were doing, Claire. I thought. I thought you were just spinning your wheels. I thought it was a hobby. I crossed my arms, feeling the sting of his words, but also a strange sense of calm. You didn't think I could do it. You didn't believe in me. You always saw me as the one who couldn't measure up. I could feel the old anger bubbling up again, but I swallowed it. There was no point in reliving the past. Not when the future was unfolding in front of me. I never believed it was possible. Not until now, he said, his voice thick with regret. I feel ashamed. I didn't understand your work. I thought it was all just a game to you. He paused, looking away for a moment. But now I see what you've built. and I don't know how to make up for that. I studied him for a moment. My father, the man who had torn me down for years, now standing in front of me, apologizing in a way that felt so unfamiliar. I could see the guilt in his eyes, the way he was trying to come to terms with his own failure to see me for who I really was. I took a deep breath, weighing my options. I didn't need him in my life, but part of me that had never stopped longing for his approval, was still holding on to the idea of family, of connection. I looked him in the eye. I've been thinking about it, and I want to offer you a chance to be a part of Vox Tech. As an advisor. You've got years of experience in business, and I could use that. But there's a condition. His eyes widened, but he stayed quiet, listening. You've got to be willing to learn. You've got to be willing to contribute, not just sit on the sidelines and criticize. If you want to come in, you're going to have to put in the work, actually understand what this is about. Not just the old business model, the tech, the future. He was quiet for a moment, his brow furrowed. And you think I can do that? After all these years of me telling you it was a waste. I didn't soften. I couldn't. I think you can. But only if you're willing to try. Because I'm not going back to the way things were. I've built this company, and I'm not going to let anyone hold me back anymore, not even you. He stood there for a long time, his jaw clenching and unclenching. Finally, he nodded, albeit reluctantly. I'll think about it, he said, almost as if he was trying to convince himself more than me. I stared at him for a long moment. That's all I'm asking for. Think about it. But know this, if you come back, it's because you want to help. You're not coming in to fix me. I'm not broken. He swallowed hard, then nodded again, a little more resolutely this time. I'll think about it, he repeated, and I saw the gears turning in his head. But I knew, even if he didn't admit it yet, that he was trying to figure out how to bridge the gap, how to step into a new world. My world. I'll be here when you're ready, I said, turning toward the door. But just know I don't need you to succeed. I never did. And for the first time, I didn't care if he ever understood me or not. What mattered now was what I was building and how far I'd come, with or without their approval. A week after the conversation with my father, I was sitting across from him in the conference room at Vox Tech. His eyes were wide with interest as I walked him through our latest plans for expansion. He had agreed to join the company, albeit with a hesitant sense of determination. I didn't expect miracles overnight, but I did expect him to show up, to try. And so far, he had been doing that. I've been looking at the numbers, my dad said, his voice rough around the edges. And the contracts with Tesla and Amazon, they're impressive. What's the next move? I nodded, pushing a few papers across the table toward him. We're looking at branching into biotech, expanding our AI capabilities for healthcare applications. The next phase is creating predictive models that can help doctors make faster, more accurate diagnoses. But we need more capital, which means we need to scale up quickly. He rubbed his chin, thoughtful. And you think we can make that happen in the next year? Not think. No, I said, meeting his eyes. I didn't get this far by doubting myself. He chuckled under his breath, a sound that didn't quite reach his eyes. There was still so much unsaid between us, but for the first time, I didn't mind. We were speaking the same language now, and that was enough for now. Just then, my phone buzzed again, a reminder that the world didn't stop turning. I glanced at it, an email from my cousin, Eric, the one who had mocked me the most in the past. The message was brief, but it was enough. He wanted to meet, to learn more about the tech industry, to get some advice on how he could adapt his career. I closed my phone and looked back at my dad. My cousins are starting to reach out. It's funny, isn't it? A few months ago, they wouldn't have given me the time of day. Now, they want to know everything about tech. My dad's lips twitched, a barely there smile. Funny how that works. The family business has always been about building something solid, something that lasts. Guess you've proven that's exactly what you're doing. There was no bitterness in his voice, just a recognition that we were in a new phase. A phase where tech, not construction, was the future. I didn't get here by playing it safe, I said. But I've always believed in the long game. It's not just about the deals or the numbers. It's about creating something that actually makes a difference. He leaned back in his chair, nodding. Sounds like you've found your place. I took a deep breath, still feeling the weight of everything that had happened. The family, the business, my career, none of it had been easy, but I was finally starting to see it all come together. The tension in the room had eased significantly, and though I knew there were still a million things to work through, this felt like progress. Over the next few weeks, things started shifting. My cousins, those who had dismissed me, laughed at my hobby of building box tech, were now asking questions. They wanted to know how they could pivot, how they could innovate like I had. My uncle called, curious about how the tech industry worked, even asking if there were partnerships to explore between Vox Tech and the family business. They were learning. Slowly, but they were learning. It wasn't lost on me that I had become the person they were now looking to for guidance, but I wasn't bitter. Not anymore. They didn't need to apologize or explain themselves. The fact that they were now showing interest, asking questions, it was a form of respect, and that was enough. One afternoon, I found myself at an industry conference, invited to speak as a top innovator in AI and technology. The room was packed, and I was sitting on a panel with some of the brightest minds in the field. They asked me about the future of AI in industries like healthcare and autonomous driving, about the ethical implications of AI in military defense, and how Vox Tech was positioning itself as a leader in these spaces. I answered each question confidently. The years of building Vox Tech, the long nights, the rejection, all of it now a part of me. I had finally carved out a space for myself, not just in the tech world, but in my own life. As the panel ended, a woman from a major tech publication came up to me, asking for an interview. I agreed, of course, knowing that this moment, this recognition, was more than just validation. It was proof that everything I'd worked for was finally being seen for what it was. When I returned home, the phone calls started again. This time, it wasn't my father asking for advice, but my cousins interested in the future of tech, eager to learn how they could fit into this new world. They were eager to understand what I had built and how they could be a part of it. The business was evolving, just as I had. My family was learning, adapting, and for the first time, I didn't have to fight for their approval. I wasn't just their daughter anymore. I was the person leading the charge into a future none of them had anticipated. And that was exactly how I wanted it. The day of the IPO was a blur of press releases, meetings, and last-minute checks, but when the numbers finally came through, Voxteca's valuation hit over $6 billion. I didn't feel the surge of joy I expected. I didn't meet it. I'd spent so much of my life looking for external validation, hoping that one day, my family would see me for who I was, for what I had done. But the truth was, I didn't need them to approve of me anymore. I had built Vox Tech. I had earned this. The IPO wasn't the end of something, it was the confirmation that I was already in control of my own life. I sat in my office, the soft hum of the city outside the window, and thought back to the night of the gala. That night, I had stood there, feeling small, unimportant, completely out of place in a room full of people who'd spent their lives in the family business, while I was out here building something entirely different. I remembered the sting of my father's words, the way they had cut through me like a blade. But now, as I leaned back in my chair and looked at the numbers on the screen, I didn't feel that weight anymore. I had done this on my own, and it had nothing to do with their approval. My father, now working alongside me at Voxtech as an advisor, had come a long way since that night. He didn't fully understand the tech world, but he respected it. More importantly, he respected me. For all the years of disappointment, all the years I had spent trying to prove myself to him, we had found a way to work together. He was still a product of the old world construction, legacy, family, but there was a shift in him now. A new respect. Claire, he said one afternoon, as we sat in a meeting discussing expansion into Asia, I've been thinking about that whole venture capital push you suggested. I didn't get it at first, but I see it now. This is where the future is. I'll help you set up some meetings. I had been waiting for that moment for years, the moment when he would see me, truly see me, not just as his daughter, but as someone who had built something worthy of his respect. But hearing it out loud still felt strange, like the ground beneath me hadn't quite settled. I nodded, keeping my voice even. Thanks, Dad. It means more than you know. But even with that shift, there was still a lingering sense of resentment. I couldn't forget the years of being overlooked, the years of feeling like I wasn't enough. My father, even now, would never fully understand what I did. He could never know the long nights, the sacrifices I had made, the relentless pressure to prove myself. And that was fine. I didn't need him to understand. I just needed him to respect what I had accomplished. The family had changed. They were learning, slowly, awkwardly, about the future I was building, about the way the world was evolving. My cousins, once dismissive, now asked me questions about tech startups, about venture capital. They asked how to invest, how to pivot their businesses. They didn't quite know what to make of it, but they were listening. I had carved out my own space, not just in the tech world, but in my own life. I wasn't the girl who had to fit into their mold anymore. I wasn't the daughter who had to meet their expectations. Vox Tech was my legacy, and it was one I had built on my own terms. I wasn't done yet. The IPO was just the beginning. The road ahead was full of opportunities, expansion, new partnerships, new projects. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was fighting for a seat at the table. I own the table now. And as I looked at the numbers, the company's growth, the future that was stretching out in front of me, I realized that I had everything I needed. Validation from anyone wasn't required. The work I had done spoke for itself.